Hello friends, it's Kayla. As you might be aware, it is Goodreads Choice Awards season, the time of year where people vote on their favorite books and then we find out the best books and none of them are surprises. That's what this time of year is all about, but also for me, it's the time of year where I celebrate my BookTube birthday. I started my BookTube channel in November of 2014, and so that means it has been 10 years on this channel. So I'm kicking off a video series, a year-long video series. Every single month I'm going to be doing a video or a vlog that's reflecting on the 10 years. It's going to be reading some stuff, rereading some stuff. In this first one, I thought because we're in Goodreads Choice Awards season and I did not even know about the Goodreads Choice Awards in 2014, I thought I would go back and read some of the nominees. Don't worry, I am still doing a 2024 version of this. I'll be reading something from every category again, like last year. And in this video, I'll be reading, well, I don't know, maybe between like 4 and 8 things, depending what's about to show up. I have never looked at this before. I have no idea what's about to pop up. Maybe I should commit to, if a book is here that's on my TBR, like my physical TBR, I already own it, I absolutely have to read it in this video. Oh, also, in case I look really different, just know that I'm filming this in April because I can't wait anymore and I want to know what the freaking books are going to be. So I can see here all of the winners if I scroll past. I have read 3 books from here, 4, 5, 6 books from here. I don't think many of these I actually read in 2014. They were just popular enough that I picked them up in future years. My favorite of all of these winners was The Martian. I also read Girl Boss. I don't know why it's not marked as read here, maybe because I read it for my workbook club. Side note, actually first note, we haven't even started yet. I see food and cookbooks as a category and I want to dive into that first because how fun would it be to pick up a cookbook and like every day this week make something from it, along with reading a selection of books. So we have Ina Garten was the winner. We have A Thug Kitchen, My Paris Kitchen, 100 Days of Real Food. Oh, we have the Oh She Glows cookbook. I actually own that. I haven't made anything from it. That's embarrassing. I have already read the fiction winner, but let's just take a glance at what else is here. Okay, I read Big Little Lies. I would have voted for that because I loved it. A lot of authors that are familiar that have written a lot of things that I've read. We have Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. I would actually vote for that one instead. If I were to pick something from here, it would probably be the Book of Unknown Americans or An Untamed State because I like Roxane Gay's nonfiction and maybe it would be fun to pick up this one. Mystery thriller. Hopefully I've read like a good amount of these. If it's been out for 10 years, shouldn't I have read them? No, I haven't. Oh wow. Most of these, a lot of them are parts of series. I'm not interested in anything that I'm seeing here, just to be honest. I'm gonna skip over historical fiction just because that's not my top genre. Ooh, okay, fantasy is next. A lot of these are parts of series too. I don't think I want to read anything from here. Wow, fantasy looks so different 10 years later. Some actually have the same authors, but just like the covers seem so different. And let's just move along swiftly into romance. I don't know why Ugly Love is not marked as read on my Goodreads. Books have been disappearing from my Goodreads lately. Anyway, I have read the Colleen Hoover here. I've actually read that Jamie McGuire too, I think. Or maybe not, maybe I read something else from that author. Raw, I DNF'd. I don't remember what that is at all. I feel like Christina Lauren is something I could see myself picking, but also Archer's Voice, I had no idea came out in 2014. And that I still see, like I'm pretty sure I've seen that one on like popular on Book Talk, trending on Book Talk tables at my bookstore. Science fiction, since I like The Martian, maybe there's something else here for me. Ooh, The First 15 Lives of Harry August. I have considered reading. I don't own it. I have read Annihilation. That came out in 2014. I thought that was a way older book. Horror is next. There's definitely gonna be something here for us. The Winter People. I DNF'd The Girl with All the Gifts, but I did like skip to the ending, so everyone who tells me to read that, I've kind of read it. Bird Box, I read and loved. Oh, Horror Store. Oh my god, look at it so far down in the rankings. It only got 2,000 votes. Meanwhile, Grady Hendrix now is like at the top of the charts. I used to own Broken Monsters. I don't think I do anymore, but Horror Store is in my TBR closet. I've been waiting for like the perfect moment to read that. These covers also are just so different. Humor, I don't think, oh my gosh. Hannah Hart, that's crazy. YouTubers being in here, very fun. Nonfiction, okay, I've read Bad Feminist and absolutely loved it. I don't recognize like any of these other books. Business books, there used to be a business books category and I've read one of them, but I'm okay. Then we have debut Goodreads author. So we have options like Red Rising. This whole line I've read. I would be voting for Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. Young adult fiction, like maybe there would be something here left on my TBR. Oh, My Life with the Walter Boys. That got recently adapted into like a Netflix show or movie and everybody was talking about it. Maybe I should go back and read that one. I would be voting for I'll Give You the Sun because that's incredible. Young adult fantasy and science fiction. Oh, this is when The One came out. I reread the selection series like already, I don't know, 5 years after reading for the first time. What a disappointment. So much nostalgia here. Divergent stuff. Taheda Mafi, Jennifer L. Armentrout. Oh, Blue Lily Lily Blue. That one is what I would be voting for. I've read The Kiss of Deception. I've read Ruin and Rising. Things here that I definitely could experience for the gag, like just for the fun of it all, to roast these silly like YA fantasy books from 10 years ago. I don't know. And then we have middle grade. Let's see if any of these are on like Liam's shelf. Oh, Brown Girl Dreaming. Have I read that? I own it. Have I read it? Why can I not remember? I've read El Defo. Okay, Brown Girl Dreaming is definitely added to my TBR. I was gonna skip over this section. Okay, I think I've got a good selection of things. I'm also gonna read into the synopsis of everything I just saw in case something slipped by me that I need to make sure to add to my list. And I will see you when I have something to tell you. Hello, it's 7 months later and I'm finally getting ready to read. This isn't how I wanted you to find me because I'm in a bit of a crisis. Have you ever not been able to find something and tried so hard to find it that you convince yourself you maybe never owned it to begin with? That's me with Horror Store. I have spent the last hour of my life, actually 90 minutes. I am losing my mind. 60 minutes I have spent looking for this book. I was like, surely, maybe I accidentally put it in the stack of my October reads. It's not there. Surely it's on my TBR shelf somewhere. It's not there. Is it in my TBR closet? No. Did I accidentally put it on the shelf of my read books? But it's such an abnormal size. I should be able to see it. Did I ever own this book? I cannot find it. The reason that's frustrating right now is because yesterday was Halloween and I thought Horror Store is gonna be the perfect thing to kick off this whole video on Halloween. And then I was on Audible, which I like don't even use, but I had to go on there for books that were only available on there for a different video. And while I was there, it said Horror Store was available for free. So I added it to my library and it expired November 1st, like at midnight. And I got 70% of the way through the audiobook and now I can't find the physical book and it expired and I'm not gonna go buy the audiobook to just listen to 1 hour. And I need to find my book. I can't believe I can't find my book. I'm prepared otherwise. I found Brown Girl Dreaming in my TBR closet. I will be reading that. I did pick up Archer's Voice. In fact, I've had this for months because I saw it on the stack, just like I said, at the bookstore. It said Book Talk Favorites, so I didn't make that up. I grabbed an Untamed State by Roxane Gay at the library. I'm actually halfway through this one because I've been really slowly reading it throughout the last couple weeks. It is very heavy. I have found my Oh She Glows cookbook and I'm ready to flip through here and see what I want to make. And currently the channel besties have a little early insight into this video and are currently trying to convince me to read Red Rising and the Harry August one that I was like halfway committed to. I've just been putting off filming this clip. I wanted to update you on Horror Store, but if I can't hold it, I don't want to talk to you because I want to flip through it and show you things. I don't know what's going on. I guess the first thing that I'm reading for the video is an Untamed State instead because I have started it, so let me give you an update. We are following a Haitian American woman and she is in Haiti with her husband and her family who lives there when she gets kidnapped. And apparently this is a normal, regular thing that happens. So much so that there are negotiators who are just on call, the same as like a lawyer or a doctor. You can just call one up really easily and be like, oh, somebody got kidnapped again. You know what to do. Help me out with this situation. And then they just like organize it and figure it out and you get your person back. For Muriel, her father is a very successful architect and the kidnappers want a whole lot of money for her and he is getting advice from the negotiator. He's decided to like say no to any back and forth. Like, he doesn't want to give them anything, and that's not what the negotiators are used to. They're used to like negotiating, and so it's a weird situation there. The kidnappers know that he has money, so they know that they'll give in eventually, and also she is determined to get out of it as well without any money being exchanged or without having her father to be in a difficult situation, because she knows like they will eventually let her go, because that's just how this works. Where I'm at about halfway through, it's been a lot of her staying strong and being bold to her captors and just like standing up for herself and hoping that she gets out of it. And at this point, the negotiation is getting messy and she is starting to be harmed and starting to like beg for somebody to get her out of it. But interspliced in the negotiation scenes and the survival scenes, there's a lot of reflection, and I love it so much the way that this is written, how we get a moment where she says, oh, I've witnessed something like this before, and then she has a memory of like meeting her husband for the first time, and we get little moments of their relationship. Her husband and her father have very different ideas of how to get her back, and so they're at odds, and we just get so many things happening all at once that I'm really enjoying the pace of this. Late night update, I did finish my book, and I found Horror Store. It was tucked into my TBR closet, like inside where, like, if you look straight in the TBR closet, you wouldn't see it because it's like there's a little, the closet door. It was like behind a lip, so I couldn't see it, but I found it. And what I want to say first of all is that I'm so glad I'm doing this video. Like, I didn't have a goal with picking the books. It was just stuff off my TBR shelf. It was authors I've heard of before. It was books that I think would be interesting for content. I wasn't thinking, what am I gonna gain? What kind of conversation am I gonna get to have? And now, having read, well, mostly like debut novels from authors who I've read their more recent stuff, it's just so interesting to me thinking about how they might rewrite these if they came out now, 10 years later. That's the feeling that I'm left with. Because with both of these, they don't have the just like super identifiable quality that other things that I've read from them have. Roxane Gay hasn't written another novel, so that's just really interesting that her debut novel is the only thing that she's written. She does so many other things, like she edits so many things, she participates in so much. If you follow her on like anywhere, she's just a lover of books, and she loves talking about books and highlighting authors. And so just like knowing her as this figure gives me an idea of how she might rewrite this now and the things she might want to cover, because to me it was great. I'm giving it a 4, but it felt very like paint by numbers. Like you took a writing class and you had to make sure there was an action scene every like 75 pages. You had to make sure this happened right in the middle. You had to make sure it had this kind of ending. The skill, the prose is absolutely evident. I just get this feeling that she at this point would have a lot more confidence in her writing ability to delve more into things that you know that she cares about. And we would get more commentary on like Haiti and like social things and the dichotomy between the different classes of people that we briefly get a look into, but there's not a lot of commentary and exposition alongside. It's more so action scenes and dialogue. And then also like the emotions and the main character working through her trauma. I'm really glad that I stopped where I did and I ended up reading the entire second half of it in one sitting, because it is at that point about her recovery and about the impact that this whole situation had on her marriage. And while the action scenes definitely kept the pace moving, like I said before, it was good, I just get the feeling that there wasn't necessarily passion or intent behind those scenes of her like almost escape and then running down the street and going into a bar and then her being caught and brought back. They didn't feel as important as the emotions that we started to get insight into. And I'm just really happy to have read something from somebody who I only experienced their nonfiction and their editing of collections and their like magazine articles and stuff. It was a very beneficial reading experience. And I'm feeling with Horror Store, I guess let's do a title screen. Time for Horror Store. I got into Grady Hendrix when he published the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. And after that, I continued reading everything he came out with after, and then have slowly been like filling out my reading time with backlist stuff. And everyone recommends me Horror Store, and I definitely understand why. It has the makings of other things that I've read. It's got a kind of satirical workplace culture we're examining. So obviously it's reminding me a little bit of Fina, as well as the Calvin Kasulki book. And I really like this dynamic of putting the reader in the shoes of somebody with like a mundane task, and then crazy stuff starts to happen. So we're at this IKEA-like store, and it opens in a really fun way with like IKEA-like catalogs, and the audiobook was reading all of this to me. It was a lot. And we're following these employees as they come to work and realize that someone is in the store, or a ghost, or like something is happening in the store when they're away, and they decide to stay in the store for a longer amount of time and kind of be security and investigate what's happening at their workplace. I don't think it has a really strong authorial voice, which I would say about every other Grady Hendrix. You could not put his name on the front and I could read that, any of his other novels, and know that it was him. This one being like something he wrote 10 years ago, or even longer, published 10 years ago though, it doesn't feel as like clear that he has found his voice. I feel like I'm having a fine time. It's entertaining. The audiobook is well produced. I'm just not like, oh my God, can't wait to find out what happens. I'm just reading it to read it, and I'm glad to finally have it off of my TBR. But we'll see in this final third if it like really impresses me or does anything for me. Okay, so I made the Oshi Glows mushroom gravy and mashed potato cauliflower thing. It wasn't very interesting. Difference of me, we can talk about publishing, but me, 2014 to 2024, I'm not vegan anymore. I was at the time. I have done so many recipes from her blog. Even now, like currently, I've tried newer ones recently. I still eat vegan recipes, but I myself am not vegan. And I think the cookbook is cool for existing. Very much feels like the first thing that you publish. Like, I don't know if she has written anything else since or made other cookbooks. It's just a very introductory kind of cookbook, which feels useful and necessary. It's just not very interesting. There's nothing in here that is super unique that I haven't seen before. In fact, some of these recipes I've definitely made before. I'm assuming from her blog already, so maybe some things from her blog got put in here, and the rest of them, they're just they're simple. Unfortunately for me, this isn't something that I picked up in 2014, and I regret it because it would have been more valuable then. Now, I am a much more confident cook, and I don't really stick to any recipes because I just know inherently like what flavors kind of are gonna go together, or I've made something similar before, and so I know what to add and what I already want to adjust. So there's no real concepts in here besides the desserts, because like, I don't make desserts, that I couldn't have already dreamt up myself, especially when it's a vegan cookbook and there are only so many like ingredients that we're talking about. What I will say about this is it's very nostalgic. Like, this is the most 2014 photo shoot I've ever seen. If she was wearing like a coral necklace in this picture, this is just like the quintessential 2014 girly. The font on the front, like, it's just so set in a certain time. I'm sure I will make a couple other things from here, but 2014 vegan recipes are so dry. They're just so dry because it's not just about like making things vegan, but it's making things low calorie a lot of the time. And so it's like a burger and there's no sauce to be seen. It's like there's mashed potatoes in here, and her goal is to make it like healthier. It's not about making it vegan, because mashed potatoes, if you use vegan butter, it's already vegan, it's just potatoes. She wants you to add cauliflower to make it like in a different nutritional direction. And all the smoothies in here just like look like juice, when you can still make really decadent smoothies on a vegan diet, but instead hers are just like spinach, watermelon, coconut water. This is definitely handy for beginning your vegan journey and if you need ideas for sure. But in this day and age and everything on the internet, even if like maybe you were the originator of kale chips, nobody needs to pay this much money for a book to teach you how to make kale chips or telling you how to make fries out of potatoes. But if you're cooking for the first time, I definitely understand it. It's just not as valuable to me now or fun as I wish it would be. I finished Horror Store. I would say the physical reading experience is more valuable if you have the option to do one over the other. I think something that's really fun about this is these pages that are like IKEA furniture, you know, descriptions of the item. These get more unhinged as the book goes on because the book gets more unhinged. These people are experiencing terror in this IKEA, and it gets really brutal, and I think it could have delved a little bit more into relationships and emotions and personal stuff, but I also at the same time understand why, like, it did what it intended to do, which was turn into just like a scary mass murder haunted house story. I think I would give it, I don't know if it's a full 4. I might give it a 3.75. I had fun with it, and I do think that if he wrote this current day, it would be a little bit different. The way that I know he likes to dive into some social commentary with satire, with horror, and balancing all of those things, this one wasn't the perfect balance for me to love. But I also have never given Grady Hendrix a 5-star, which seems kind of crazy because I think of his books really fondly. And I'm so excited to read Witchcraft for Wayward Girls next year with you all in February. And I'll set you up for success right now because going into it knowing that it's not so much horror, I think is important, because if you only want the scares and the intensity and like really gruesome stuff, that's not what this one is. Not that I've read it, but from what I've been hearing other people say about it, is it's more about women and pregnancy and getting control over your life and having a say in what happens to you. And it's a slower gothic novel about dark magic. And I guess I'll see you tomorrow with something else. What do I want to read? I don't know. Today feels like the day for romance. I picked this, I mean, you were there. It was just one that I'd heard of, that I've seen around, and obviously it has longevity, so I figured it could be a good one. What's fun about this is I have no idea what it's about. I haven't read a single bit of the synopsis, haven't glanced at the back. Being called Archer's Voice, I'm assuming it's either a girl who falls in love with like a singer, somebody who used to be a singer but isn't anymore, and she helps him find his voice, or it's a person who she meets with like selective mutism, and it's about him not having a voice or maybe still finding his voice by the end, and it's going to be like a feel-good journey for her, helping him find his voice. Those are the two things that I anticipate, but I'm going to read the first couple chapters and then I'll let you know what it's actually about. I have now read the first 50 pages, the first 5 chapters of Archer's Voice, and I can tell you about it while I look at this apple pie oatmeal. The only thing I don't already have in the house is unsweetened applesauce. So I think I might just like cut up an apple and blend it real quick because that'll just add more of the apple flavor that it wants. One thing I want to say right off the bat is I hate when synopses are written from the main character's perspective, even if the book is. Like, I just don't like that because you can't remind me of the character's name and I already forgot it. I think it was Bree. Okay. There we go. So we are following Bree, who moves to this small town. Well, I don't know. She says like she's on a road trip and she just wants to escape and get away. And her friends are calling her like, where did you go? What happened? So she's experienced some type of a trauma. It's kind of giving safe haven vibes. And she finds out about this character named Archer, who like no one in town has ever spoken to him. They say it's because he's deaf, but also reclusive. And Bree knows sign language because her dad is deaf. And she's like, oh, I can like get to know this guy, maybe teach him sign language. She ends up on his property and he's like, I already know sign language. They're not interested in each other at this point, but she is just, you know, starting a new life. She gets a job as a waitress. She's making friends and eventually they're gonna become interested in each other, I guess. And that's all I've really got for you so far. So in our saucepan, we're doing oats, the apple, and I'm using a spoon that Liam made in woodwork, my quote unquote applesauce, chia seeds, cinnamon and ginger, a little bit of salt, and a cup of almond milk, but I'm gonna add a little bit more to make up for my lack of proper applesauce. I cook that for 10 minutes and then I add maple syrup and vanilla extract, which I'm running low on both of those things. And then the toppings suggested are walnuts, hemp seeds, and coconut. So I'll be right back and show you how it looks and tastes. I am so excited to try this. Honestly, I'm just glad that the recipe had me rehydrating chia seeds, because the sheer volume of raw chia seeds that so many of us were consuming in 2014 is a little concerning. Also on this label, I think I have mulberries. Full transparency, haven't bought mulberries since 2014. Do I love it? The recipe does just say almond milk, and I buy unsweetened almond milk. So with regular almond milk and the applesauce that I was missing, I'm sure it would have been a little bit sweeter, but I can always just add more maple syrup. I dig it. Solid lunch, would recommend. Or breakfast, for most people that's breakfast. Especially the cold weather this week, that warmth really hits a spot. Okay, quickly I want to talk about titles. I don't know if you can see what's happening behind me actually. I thought let's look through some of the romance titles that we experienced in 2014, like what was really doing it for people. Because we can talk about covers, but those change all the time. Once the 2024 ones are out, I'll pop in with my thoughts and comparison about how things are titled currently. But some of the titles that we had are Written in My Own Heart's Blood, which is kind of crazy. Ugly Love, another intense one. Beautiful Oblivion, very intense. The Backup Boyfriend, I don't know how I feel about that one. Stepbrother Dearest is crazy. Sweet Filthy Boy, pretty horrifying. Black Lies, again, pretty intense. So I wonder what they're gonna be this year. I feel like they're gonna be, like, the covers are definitely gonna be lighter, illustrated, more cutesy, but are the titles still gonna be what to me sounds like darker romance? This is me popping in, as promised. I almost just knocked you down. Somebody in my recent video where I was talking about 10 years on BookTube said, oh, you should do your makeup like you used to, or like wear something you used to. I just scoured my closet and my channel to find something that I've owned since 2014. Cannot find it. But this feels very 2014. I definitely thrifted this in probably 2016. I don't own very many clothes that I had 10 years ago, but this frumpy little number is definitely one of them. I just want to talk about the epidemic of coral, turquoise, chevron, yellow stuff. Like, I could put together a Pinterest board of all of my old pins. The aesthetic at the time, it was so fun. It was so cute. And I'm sure now there's something 2024 wise that we'll look back on and go, oh my God, like that really just exemplified this period in time. It kind of makes sense that Rob thinks that this was one of my favorite colors. This was never, ever one of my favorite colors. When I say green and pink are my favorite colors, it's those kinds of colors, not this. But I wore this color a lot and it was really the vibe at the time. So I get it. Anyway, the Goodreads Choice Awards for 2024 are out, and I do want to talk about the romance category because it is indeed different. Romance will always have different tones. There's always going to be lighter romance, heavier romance, darker romance. It's just like what is shifting into popularity. So I do think if you look at the Goodreads Choice Awards right now, it does look pretty light and fun. At least the covers do. Who knows about the actual content? And the titles are definitely cuter, and there's some interesting parallels. 2014 had King, 2024 has King of Sloth. 2014 had Play, 2024 has Play Along. 2014 had Ugly Love, 2024 is Wild Love. 2014 had Shield of Winter. 2024 has Just for the Summer. There's some similar things, but they go a little sweeter. 2014 had Written in My Own Blood. 2024 has The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. You know? 2014 had Black Lies. 2024 has Black Representation. Yeah, there are no authors of color on that 2014 list. Anyway, that's enough out of me. Back in the past to talk about Archer's voice. I just read this scene where the author wants us to see Bree as, like, you know, perfect and beautiful and loves everybody, and she's just like really supportive and just a great character, right? So but there's this boy who's wearing glasses and she sees a bigger boy push him around. She walks up to him and go, "You okay?" And then she sees that he's reading Harry Potter and goes, "Do you know why I like that one so much? Because it's about an underdog who no one believed in at all. This funny looking kid in glasses who lived under his aunt and uncle's stairs. But guess what? he ends up doing some pretty cool stuff despite everything that's going against him, which is like nice. She's giving him a little pep talk, but like, does it not read to anyone else that she's like, hey, you little fucking nerd. I know you're a fucking nerd. You're funny looking and an underdog and no one believes in you. But you know what? I'm rooting for you. Like, what the fuck? You don't even know the kid's name. You're just gonna walk up and diss him like that? Oh my God. Anyway. I will never beat the allegations, I fear, of being a hater. I don't want to talk about this book because I've been putting it off for so long. I washed my hair. I dried my hair, I curled my hair, I set up a live show for tomorrow, I played a game with my family, all to avoid, only did those things, to avoid having to talk to you about this. This is difficult to navigate a discussion around because it could sound like I'm implying that a person in real life who is like Archer shouldn't find love in this way. But I just don't get it. I think that Bree is infantilizing him. I think that if this was a book about a girl who hadn't spoken to anyone in 20 years and had experienced trauma and was alone and had no friends and is completely inexperienced and innocent and a virgin, and that's the reason that the man wanted to be with her, I think we would see that as weird. But for some reason, when it's a man, because we're used to these big, brooding, controlling men in these romance books, that having this main character who is wholesome and sweet and innocent and like doesn't know anything about the world, it's supposed to be romantic, that she's introducing him to love. But I just don't think that the first person who shows you the time of day is necessarily the right person for you. And it just doesn't really check out to me the way that they're talking about this town of people. And at first it seemed like everybody hated this guy and he was a bad guy and he had this bad reputation and he was like just this guy that like nobody wanted to talk to, nobody wanted anything to do with. That's like the vibes that we got at the beginning. But then it just turns out to be him. And everybody in town is like, oh, I wish I got to know him better. Oh, I wish we had supported him back in the day. I would love to know him. I would love to meet him. And it's like, there are all of these people who could have been friends with him or romantic interest for him. But I don't get it, because it seemed like this is kind of a Beauty and the Beast kind of story, where it's supposed to be super romantic, that she's the only person who sees him as human and that's the reason why they're so good together. I don't think that's a good enough reason. And also, he's not, like, there's nothing up with him that people actually have any reason for why they didn't talk to him. Like, it's just not the story that it pretended it was gonna be at the beginning. And then it just seems so, like, ridiculous to me that so quickly he just let his guard down and he's enamored with her. And maybe it's not even just her infantilizing him, but it's me, because I'm like, is this really what he wants? Like, is this even good for him? She's just inserting herself into his life and is like, I don't think she's coming across super pushy to the reader, but to me it is. Like, it just feels, I don't know, like he doesn't speak. And he was saying to her, like, I can hear just fine. Like, people think that I'm deaf, but I can hear, so you can just talk to me. I can hear. You don't have to use sign language. And she's like, no, I want to speak to you in your own language. And it's like, why is that your call? And then she showed up at his house with like scissors one day. I was like, I want to cut your hair. Like, if you're okay. Like, she does get consent, but she's still like very forward with him. And I think that that's something that I understand people liking, because it's not the traditional romance tropes. And I do see that in a lot of Goodreads reviews that are like, oh, I like this because he's just an innocent, sweet guy and she's introducing him to things. But I just don't like the way that it's going down. I don't like the way she talks about him. To me, it feels like she likes him. The only reason she likes him is because, oh, I don't know. It's like, is it this weird internal thing of her that it's like, well, he has no friends, he has no hobbies, he has no interests, he has no opinions about anything. So wouldn't this be the perfect boyfriend for me? Like, he'll probably never hurt me because I'm literally the only person who spends any time with him. And he'll just be here all the time when I need him. She calls him like a sweet little boy sometimes. She said, like, I can't even remember what it was, but she was saying she could picture him as a little boy or reminds him of a little innocent boy. It made me feel weird. I don't care. It made me feel weird. But I'm gonna sound like a bitch because like obviously both of these people are healing from their own trauma and it's supposed to be this beautiful love story. And I just don't think it's objectively doing anything wrong. I don't like it. Then they're saying I love you so early. I just still don't see any reason that they're interested in each other. Bree does not have a personality trait that we have seen Archer be interested in. She just is there. I'm gonna finish it up and I'm gonna be mad at myself for picking this and talking about it because like this is no one's opinion. This is like one of the most beloved romances and ugh. I finished Archer's Voice. I think I give it a 2 because it is a non-offensive book and that's why I think it has so many readers and such a high average rating, is because it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't really offer any strong characters. It doesn't offer any like wild plot points. It's not a dark romance, which could risk offending people. It's not a rom-com, which could risk offending people. It's not really anything. It's just a soft, warm, loving, these two people who apparently people like together. You're just happy for them. And they've had difficult life experiences. These people absolutely deserve love. I don't like this book. I don't think the writing is good. I was thinking at least like the smutty scenes aren't poorly written, while the rest of it was questionable. But then they also like got cheesy. Just a lot of like explosions and a lot of like scents and flavors and like things that don't make a lot of sense. A lot of repetitive language. Could have used more editing, but it also was just kind of nothing. Like it wasn't an objectively terrible book. I didn't have a good time with it, obviously. But that's me and all romance, most romance. So it's not like, oh, maybe things from 2014 don't hold up. I'm just a hater to my core. Was then, am now. Oh, and at least it wasn't a story about her like fixing him, which is something that I feared it was gonna delve into. It was a story about her own personal growth through like helping this man. And like it was in a sense, but not regarding his difficulties and his trauma. I just want to love a romance book. Oh. I'm about to get into my next read, Brown Girl Dreaming. Before I do that, I did one more recipe from Oh She Glows. I thought I should update you. I did DNF Red Rising. I actually decided to give it a try. I got 10% in and I gave up on it. So if you were hoping that was gonna be a thing, I was too. Yeah, I know that it's in my members TBR jar a couple times, so it would have been nice to get to it in this video in case it pops up one day, but it just was not for me. I also am 20% of the way into the audiobook for the Harry August, whatever that one's called. And it hasn't really pulled me in or hooked me yet, but I still wanna read one more thing. So I think I'll go through a little bit more of that, see if I wanna complete it. But this, which is Jacqueline Woodson's, like, I believe kind of life story, growing up in the 60s and 70s in, I forget where she lived. She lived partially in New York and, oh, there we go, Ohio. And it's her telling the, like, just memories of her life and her family, her siblings, her mom, told in verse. So I think this will be a pretty quick read. And for the recipe, it had me buying corn chips and making, I think it called it a mango salsa. Oh no, guacamole. Glowing strawberry mango guacamole. Hers looks very wet. Maybe if my things were like super ripe, but it's avocado, red onion, mango, strawberries, cilantro, and lime. I can't imagine it's not good. Cheers. Sure, I mean, there's nothing too crazy in here. And that's gonna be my final experience in this vlog for the Oh She Glows cookbook. I don't really feel like rating cookbooks is a thing that people do, especially if I haven't tried out every single recipe, but I think it's fine. The most valuable stuff is at the end when it teaches you how to make almond milk or banana soft serve, all things that I've done before and I've learned via blogs. I think where I struggle with a cookbook is I love to see steps of the process, and a lot of cookbooks, especially this one, doesn't have any of that. Like, I want to know, especially when I was learning to like make a roux, I wanted to know what it was supposed to look like, because you can give me the times of things, but if I don't see an example, I'm not going to understand at what point I'm supposed to add something else or when something is the right texture that the recipe is telling me to get to. So I just think I don't love a cookbook in general compared to a blog, but I also know that so many bloggers put in so much effort and never really get the monetary benefit that they should based on how many people are just getting these recipes for free. So I understand the point of a cookbook. And I'll see you back here in just a minute. The lighting is so atrocious today. There's nothing I can do about it. It's been gloomy for a week. I finished this days ago and I didn't tell you my thoughts. I have the romance pulled up because I was just talking about romance comparisons. I would love to pull up the middle grade category of the current 2024 Goodreads Choice Awards to compare, but it doesn't exist. That one I do understand more than them getting rid of poetry, humor, graphic novels, because like middle grade age people aren't going on Goodreads and reviewing things for the most part or rating them. The other categories though, what is Goodreads doing? They've never made any sense though, we already know that. But still, like middle grade was a great category, and children's picture books, because as adults, like, are we not responsible for buying those books for our children? Do we not, like, why don't we get to learn about them? What's the harm in having that category, basically? But I suppose this is your opportunity to, like, I know so many people want to get away from Goodreads, so this is the time to follow like smaller publications, the ones that focus on titles for younger people, and to go follow creators who are talking about these things and can give you proper recommendations. I'm gonna give this a 4. Obviously it's her own personal story, and so that I really appreciate, seeing, you know, her childhood, how she grew up. And then also it does have intent behind it with what she wants, the story she wants to tell, and sharing like the importance of fighting for what you believe in no matter what, and how important it is to have people in your corner supporting you. It's about finding her own voice. There was a scene the first time she ever wrote her name down, which felt really powerful. Finding her name and her voice and the power that she could yield from that. And obviously we know her to be an author now. And so I think it is interesting to see like where somebody started, whether or not you want to have a similar career trajectory. There's inspiration to be found here. The writing is beautiful. It's simple enough, obviously for the audience intended, but can be enjoyed by adults. And it also gives you a look at the world and the climate at this time, the way she had to move about in the world. And I thought it was really solid. Not a life-changing one necessarily, but I do think, looking at the middle grade category, if this was current day, this is what's interesting to think about. Which books in the category have seen longevity? Which ones were of their time and which ones have lasted a long time? This would probably, if we were voting on all of the 2014 ones now, would be higher to the top of the list based on how many readers it has now, the average rating now, compared to 10 years ago. That's what I just think is so interesting to think about. When I was talking about Grady Hendrix and the horror category, he would be so much higher now. And that must be true with other categories. Hold on, I just had an idea. Don't look at my messy kitchen. I was not planning on having you face this way today, but I want to read one more book for this video. I don't want to finish either of the two things that I started, and I don't like, it's gonna suck if I'm disappointing people with that decision. Maybe I'll return to them at some point, but this year is a wash for me. I just filmed my 10 years on BookTube update. I'm acknowledging the fact that like this year was not for me, this month is not for me. I don't want to read something just because it's popular, because it's what I'm supposed to be reading. I want to pick something that feels of its time, 2014, not something that has outlasted, not the things I've already read that people still recommend 10 years later. I want to read something that no one is reading in 2024. I might regret this decision. Let's just look through, like, if I've heard of them, that means they're popular. I already read something from fiction. Maybe I could find something in mystery thriller. There's so many parts of series that have expanded, or these authors have written something good since. I kind of want to read a romance because Archer's voice held up, but not for me. So maybe there's something in here that no one is reading that could work for me. I think I should pick something from horror. I think I should pick the book that I think would be in, like, see, The Troop being at the bottom is crazy. It has 100,000 ratings compared to something else at the bottom, which has 10,000. So like 10 times the amount of people have picked up The Troop since this has happened. It has found its audience, it's found its legs, it's had its moment, it's grown to be bigger than it was in 2014. Horror Store only, I don't know how many readers it had, but it only got 2,000 votes, and now it has 100,000 readers. So which one hasn't lasted the 10 years? We've got Pandemic, we've got Monster Hunter Nemesis, Silence for the Dead, Dust to Dust. Okay, Okay, this has 3,000 ratings total ever. And it had 2,000 votes here. No one is reading this series currently. Oh, it's number 9 in the series. Experiment in Terror. Rena Halley, I DNF'd a book from this author called Sea to Sky. We have Blake Crouch, who, yeah, 72,000 ratings this has accumulated. Meanwhile, one that beat it still only has 3,000 ratings. The Purge of Babylon, The Getaway God. This one, Broken Monsters, would be probably higher now. I've never heard of this one. It's the 5th book in a series. Oh, hey, okay. Okay, wait. This is sexy, scary horror romance. Oh, interesting. It had like a reboot in 2020, 6 years after what was supposed to be the final book in the series was published. First one came out in 2011. It was called Dark House. Oh, here, revolves around a pair of ghost hunters, aspiring ghost hunters. After filming a creepy experience in her uncle's dilapidated lighthouse, 22-year-old Perry becomes a YouTube and internet star overnight. She attracts the attention of Dex Foray, the producer and cameraman for a site that specializes in various webisodes, very 2014, who convinces her to be the host for a low-budget ghost hunting series. Ghosts aren't the only things that can haunt them. Now, do I just read the 9th book, or do I read the 1st and the 9th? I guess you'll find out in just a second what I decided. So I didn't see the physical books available anywhere. I ended up grabbing the audiobook. It had an audiobook, so that was exciting to find. And it was a pretty quick listen last night, and I left it with really no thoughts. I was like, how am I gonna recap the first book? I picked up the first book. It was called Dark House, and it takes place in a lighthouse, and I was getting a little bit worried because the last time I read about 2 people in their romantic entanglement in a lighthouse, it ended with 1 star. This one is more like a 3. I don't really have any feelings. It started feeling a bit like Dark Fever, where there's a girl who's getting introduced to this whole new world. It felt less fantastical at the beginning, but then kind of got into this paranormal, demon-like direction. And I really like the audiobook narrator. It's weird because her voice sounds so familiar, but if I click on her name, on the website and all the other audiobooks that come up, I haven't read anything from her, I guess, but her voice is so familiar. I definitely don't feel any romantic tension between these two. I thought it was going to feel like a mix of Buffy and the X-Files based on the way that people were talking about it in their reviews. I see it like throughout the series maybe a little more X-Files-y, where you feel there's like a connection between the two and you're looking for something, but I don't feel it because he's 10 years older. She's in her early 20s, and he calls her kiddo in every scene and very much treats her like a child. And she's like, oh my God, he's so hot and sexy. Do you think he wants me? He's so hot and sexy. I could never have a man like that. I'm so fat. Her talking about her weight throughout this whole thing was very irritating. It was just distracting from the plot, and I understand it's her character and that's how she's built, but it was constantly just like, oh, my chubby fingers, and he would never like a chubby girl like me, and I lost 60 pounds but I still feel so insecure. My mom's constantly talking about my weight, and it was like at one point it became so strange to be reading because they're literally being haunted, like horrible things are happening, they're almost dying, but the worst thing in her life is that somebody told her she probably couldn't be on this ghost hunting TV show because she was a little bit chubby and she wasn't as attractive as she should be to be on TV. And it's like, you almost died 5 minutes ago. Maybe this shouldn't be the most difficult thing in your life, or what we should be reading about in this type of scenario. I guess the point is that she's dealing with her own demons and real life demons, but I don't know. And I don't really like I don't feel anything towards Dex. I don't feel like he's this attractive individual who I would root for their relationship. I don't really see what she sees in him. He kind of is just forcing her into the scenario because she was like good on camera, her reactions to paranormal activity. And yeah, it kind of went by really quickly. It definitely felt like the first book in an intended 10-book series. And now I'm gonna pick up Dust to Dust and just get right into the last book of a series that I haven't read and see where everybody's at. I'm probably gonna be confused, but I think it's gonna be juicy. So I'm gonna curl my hair, put on the audiobook, and I'll check in with you. Quick update. I don't know if you can hear my dehumidifier. My house is damp. There's a man on this audiobook. It was a real jump scare. We didn't get that in the first book, but now we are hearing from Dex's perspective. And I just was not expecting to hear a man in my ear. I don't know if I like it, and I don't know if I like him. I don't know if he has like developed as a certain character throughout the series, or it's just hearing somebody actually narrate his sections, but he is not likable. I do not like this man. I do not like what he's saying. I think the author's trying a little too hard to distinguish their perspectives. I don't know like if at any point in the series they have been distinguished like this, or if this is like the first time, but every time he comes on, he's talking about like assholes and masturbation. He said like, what did he say? Something of his was as dry as a nun's asshole. Oh, he woke up feeling like a nun's ass, all dried out and tight as a rubber band or something. And I was like, first of all, I don't even know like what the fuck you're talking about. This is so strange. And then somebody said come on a cracker at one point. He was talking about jacking off as like a joke, and then Perry like didn't have a reaction about it, and he was like, oh, she's gonna make such a terrific wife. That was weird. And then he said there was like, I don't know, they're dealing with all of this paranormal demon stuff, like I said, and they have like a shopping montage in the middle, which is so weird, and they have to go to H&M, and he goes, oh, H&M, we all know that stands for hell and metrosexuals. I just think she's trying too hard to make him sound like a man, like a bro, like a sex jokes and teenage boy humor. And like, I'm sorry, why is Perry interested in this man? I don't see it. I don't get it. Maybe I needed to read the other 7 books. I don't think this one's for me, but I'm persevering because it's not offensively bad. It's not like super poorly written or anything. I mean, it was a Goodreads Awards nominee, so never mind. I was gonna say you can expect it to be well written, but no. I know this may be shocking to somebody out there, but this book was confusing. I know, it's pretty crazy. Skipping 8 books in a series apparently matters because I didn't know what was going on. We still had the core people though, Perry and Dex, and Perry's family. I'm gonna spoil it. Not that I can really spoil that much. Am I so crooked still? Not that I can spoil that much because I don't know what's a spoiler. I don't know what happened in the rest of the series. People died. Her family members of hers, prominent, I'm assuming in the rest of the series, family members of hers died at the very end. The pace of this book was horrendous. Dex like sexually assaults her at one point near the beginning of this book. And granted, he's being possessed by a demon. But the way she had to comfort him afterwards, and she was like gushing blood, rubbed me the wrong way, for sure. It was like all about him. That whole scene was all about him. And I get it, being possessed is hard, but like, what the fuck? Apparently she has been possessed at one point in the series and he helped her out of it. They've grown closer. Hate the guy. Oh, I hate the guy. I just wanted to punch him in the nose. I guess he has given Perry confidence over the years, so that's good. She says like, oh, he's the only person who saw like what was special in me, and she needed him to tell her that she was like worthy. And I guess it's not your typical paranormal situation where it's just like anybody can see ghosts. They both have an affinity, like they have something special going on with their souls, spirits, that they're like connected to demons and stuff. And they said at one point, because they're planning on having a baby, I guess, and they were like, oh, it might be born and be the Antichrist. They got married at the end, which like I guess is good for them, but her whole family basically, well, her mom died right, but I felt like for us right before that happened, and there was time jumps and stuff, but the pace was so weird because Dex got kidnapped by his brother, who I guess we're supposed to understand as some like big bad, but we didn't get any of that in this book. Kidnapped him, took him to New York, and then told Perry, he was like, hey, I'm headed to New York if you want to get your guy back. It was weird. And then, so for a long time, she was like, oh, I can't get a hold of Dex. I can't find Dex. Can't get Dex. And then she just found him. It was really easy. She's gone back. But then he was possessed, and then he died. He died at one point, and it was obvious to the reader that he was gonna come back to life. But then like that was dragged out for a super weird amount of time. And then a whole bunch of people just like, bad things happened to them and people died. This guy named Max, who I guess we met earlier in the series, who he's immortal, but maybe he also slept with her 15-year-old sister. I was checked out, okay? He died. Then there was someone who was pregnant, who I think I'm supposed to care about in the books. She was pregnant, and she was a lesbian, and she got pregnant by someone's super sperm. I think there's some supernatural things going on that I don't fully understand. I guess this is a satisfying arc for people who read the series and love this couple together. He was just as annoying. He was more annoying in the last book than the first book. He was a very different person when we were in his head scenes and hers, and I didn't like that. The writing again was not atrocious, so I'm gonna give it a 3. Do I regret picking that when I could have read something from 2014 that you would have wanted me to read that was like outstanding? Maybe, but do I have any final thoughts to share? No. 2014, some books are good, some books are bad. 2024, some books are good, some books are bad. Why do I keep saying Burks? We've learned nothing here. I'm about to head out on a little trip, so I gotta go. I gotta get this video up. I hope you had a good time watching, and I'll see you for 11 more celebrations of my 10 years on BookTube. Bye!